What is up, everybody? Welcome back to GT Online, and in this video I'm going to take a look at the Anis 300R. I do believe I am pronouncing that correctly because if I had to guess, I would say basically everybody is probably calling that the exact same thing, if you guys know what I mean. But regardless though, we all know what this car is going to be based on, which is the new 400Z. This thing's going to be called the 300R. Rockstar is very clever on that stuff, but regardless, I have to admit, I would say they did a very good job with the design of this car as well. This thing looks pretty dang close to the real car for the most part, but also looks really unique in its own way. Now, if you guys might have been wondering about the interior, I will be showing this stuff later on as well, but normally the interiors of the cars in GTA are probably going to be pretty similar, which I have noticed this normally comes down to the manufacturer of that said vehicle class, but nonetheless though guys, I would say the 300R is going to be pretty sweet. So now let's see what can be done to the 300R. So I did add the armor and the brakes to the car. Moving over to the fenders though is going to add like a slight extension on the side of the car, which honestly guys I was kind of mixed on, but after looking at this, I really don't think it actually looks all that bad because the fitment seems to look really good on this car, at least compared to some of the other ones we have seen in the game, so I have to give Rockstar credit on that. Moving over to the front bumpers though, there's going to be 12 other ones you can put on the car, so these are going to be like big splitters and or aftermarket splitters for them. To be honest, I'm really not a big fan of some of these on these cars. I mean, I don't think they look all that good. I wouldn't say they look terrible, but it's also going to come down to the build you guys want to do on this vehicle. For me personally, though, I'm probably going to leave the front of the car stock, but moving over to the engine now, let's max that out. And then moving over to the engine covers for the 300R. Now, one thing I noticed right off the bat with this car is the detail of the engine in this vehicle plus the engine bay. I would say is going to be one of the better looking ones in the game, at least compared to some of the others. I think we can all agree some of the engine bays in GTA definitely don't look all that good, but I would say this car is definitely looking pretty sweet. I'm kind of digging that one on the thing as well. But moving down, you can basically do carbon and or some of the camo ones, which is definitely going to be pretty awesome considering we have a big option of engine covers for this, and luckily the engine bay of the 300R does have some detail to it. But moving now over to the exhaust here, there's going to be a couple of these as well. So we have carbon, then we have titanium, which I really do like those. Then we have the Infinity, which I do believe is like one big exhaust that looks like two. Obviously the middle of it's going to be cut out there. Then moving down to the titanium. Then finally the oval, and then oval's basically going to be the only one in carbon fiber, titanium, and or chrome. So it will most likely come down to which exhaust you guys like the most on your car. But moving down to the next thing is going to be the hoods. And for this we have 17 other ones to put on the car, so at least there is going to be many different options available for the 300R. It's most likely again going to come down to the build you guys do want on your vehicle. For me personally though, I'm probably going to leave the regular stock hood on this car. I think that one is going to fit it the best because I probably wouldn't do anything like this to it, even though these transparent hoods look pretty awesome. And then moving down to the liveries, I noticed there's not many for this car that you can put on, but luckily there is a good amount, that way you can customize this thing a little bit. I would say for the most part guys, most of these liveries are pretty sweet, and I really don't think they would have to do anything else besides these, unless maybe they did something like a camo livery on the car. I think might be kind of cool. But moving over to the next thing is going to be the mirror, so here's the next ones, which for me, I'm definitely going to have the primary colored ones. I do like carbon, but I do think primary looks pretty sweet on this thing. Then we have the front ones there. Then we have secondary, then carbon, and then finally the chrome. So I would say many players are probably not going to pick these, but I do understand why they have those for the older Nissans, so at least it is giving that option for those mirrors. But moving down to the rear panel, we will first have the regular painted back piece on the car, which I would say does look pretty awesome. Then we will have the secondary color if you guys are running that on this vehicle. And then finally we'll have the carbon fiber, which definitely looks pretty sweet. But moving over to the next thing is going to be the color. So for this guys, I did end up making this thing blue, and or well, I did order the car when it was blue. So I was like, you know what, let me leave that on there. Let's go with the ultra blue on this thing to really make it stand out, and then also add like a black pearlescent. I think that might make the car look pretty awesome. Let's do that now. And then moving over to the secondary color, I'm most likely just going to make this black as well. That way it doesn't mess up any of like the paint around the vehicle. I have noticed I can sometimes do that depending on how you have the car set up. But moving down to the trim color, I'm most likely going to leave this graphite because I like how it has the mix of that. Plus the blue stitching in this thing does look pretty sweet. And then moving down to the next thing is going to be the roof, which I was noticing a good amount of customization for this. So the regular stock roof I do believe is just going to be black. Then you guys can also basically make that painted, which I do think looks kind of nice, but I think it also needs like a mix. Secondary kind of looks a little weird on there. Carbon fiber looks a little bit to me. I feel like it doesn't really fit the car all that great. Then moving over to the ridgeline roof, then we have the primary. Now that I'm kind of looking at how the car does look, I kind of like the painted roof on there from this angle. Maybe I wasn't looking at the car correctly from that, but then we have the inset roof. Let me go over here. And then basically after that we will have the primary, secondary, and or the carbon fiber inset roof, which I would say is probably going to come down to preference. For me guys, I did end up going with the regular primary roof on the car. I actually like how that looks on there. But moving over to the next thing is going to be the skirts. So for this, there is luckily going to be a good amount of these, so for me guys, I did end up picking the primary carbon on there. That looks really nice, and not only that, I noticed the skirts seem to fit the car pretty well, except that one. That sticks out a little bit too much, unless it's supposed to be like that. Maybe I'm losing my mind, but if I had to guess though from looking at these, I would say it's most likely going to come down to like the build you might have on your vehicle, like a wide body kit or something. So I guess having a skirt like that on the car would probably make a lot more sense. But moving over to the next thing is going to be the spoilers. So here's the ducktail. We have carbon. Then we have the primary wedge on the back there. Looks okay on the back of the vehicle. I think that tuner one looks kind of nice, so I kind of like that. I might have to go with like a prime one there with like the tuner and or carbon fiber on there. Looks pretty cool. Then we have the secondary on like the back part of the wing. Then we have the fully carbon fiber one after that. Then here's the next wing. Looks kind of nice on there. So honestly guys, I'm kind of surprised. The wings look a lot better than I thought on this vehicle. I mean, some of these might look a little insane. Like I would say that wing might be a little bit too big for the car, but at least most of the wings on this thing do actually look pretty cool. And then after that, we're going to have the suspension, which for this, I will end up going with the race one. I feel like that's going to fit it nicely. And luckily, it's not going to camber out the car. I really don't like how that looks all that much. Then we have the transmission and or the turbo. And then finally, guys, we can move over to the rims on this vehicle, which for me, I do believe I'm going to go with the track ones on this. Now, after thinking about this for a second, guys, I realized the rims I actually want are going to be in the street class, and it is going to be the Mercy concave right here, and I also did paint them black as well. And besides that, all you can actually do to the vehicle is going to be the windows, which I will do a light smoke. But besides that, guys, that's going to be pretty much it with the 300R. I would say a lot of players are really going to like this car, and with this thing costing over $2 million, I would say just from a customization standpoint that the 300R is definitely going to be worth a look. I know a lot of players are basically expecting the cars in GTA to cost over $2 million, so the 300R is definitely not going to be an exception in that. But nonetheless though, let's go do an outside look of this vehicle right now. And then we definitely have to go on a quick test drive around the city and also test out the 300R on the highway. So now moving over to the outside look of the 300R, so I wanted to show the engine bay of this car before anything else because I was honestly pretty impressed with it. I really like how like the middle piece in there's actually painted. Now obviously the engine's not going to be the most detailed thing under like the block there, but at least we do get to see some type of detail with this car with it being $2 million. I always think about that one SUV that's over $1 million that you can't even see the engine and it looks like it belongs in GTA 4. But nonetheless though, I would say this is definitely one of the better looking street cars, aka like a sports car in the game. Like this thing is honestly pretty awesome. I really do love the detail of this thing and I really do think Rockstar did a great job on it. I think the fitment of it's really nice and they really do a great job with the design of these vehicles. I mean, you can definitely tell how they make them insanely close to their real life counterparts but also different. And not only that, I feel like this is one of those sports cars a lot of players will buy, even with it being over $2 million. So now moving over to the interior view of this car. Now I'm not going to lie guys, you're probably going to recognize the interior pretty fast, but then again this is GTA Online so I really can't hate on it. One good thing though is at least it's going to be a digital type of reader in the middle so you can kind of see how fast you might be going. And on my way over here I hit like 100 miles an hour, but again it's in the city. I also didn't really drive that far, but for the most part though, I would say at least the interior of this car has some type of detail to it. But now, besides all that, let's go take this thing on a quick test drive around the city. So first impressions overall, guys, I would say this car is definitely going to be worth a look. Now, of course, it is going to cost over $2 million. And if you were to max it out and customize it a little bit, you're probably going to be looking at maybe 2.3 to 2.4. But I would say that's probably the average price for a vehicle in GTA at this time. But again, we have a new sports car in the game that looks like the new Z. So I would say a lot of players are going to pick this thing up. I would say Forza probably has this vehicle if I had to guess. And I know the new Need for Speed also has it, so at least this game is going to have this car as well. I think that is pretty awesome. Whoa! And that is why you do not run red lights, guys. Take notes on that, my goodness. I always get mad at the pedestrians. Funnily enough, it's always my fault for actually running the red lights, but regardless, though, I would say this car is going to be pretty impressive. Now, I do want to go on, like, the highway with it in, like, a straightaway to actually see its speed. Let's go here. Let's go this way toward the highway and not run into any pedestrians. I'll go in first person mode. Now, one thing I will say though is I'm not sure if this car is going to be as fast as like the Pariah, because I know that car was basically owning the sports class, well, basically forever. That thing was honestly pretty nuts with how fast it could go, and I feel like testing a car out in the city is not going to be the best way because most of the cars do get faster with the bumps. I would say this vehicle can probably hit like 150 plus in the city if I had to guess, and I also feel like many of the cars on GTA pretty much have to be faster in the city because not only does that kind of make sense in a way, but also it does make them a lot more fun. Now, I'm sure many people might be like, how does that make sense? Well, to be honest, I really don't know how hitting a bump and or a curb is going to make a lot of the cars faster, but I would say in the city, many players probably enjoy flying around and going a lot faster, but once you guys jump on the highway, you're really going to see the difference of these cars definitely in that aspect. But let's see what this thing can do on the way to Blaine County by that tunnel. So let's get past all these cars here. So right now I'm doing about 125. It looked like 127 or so on flat ground. I would say for a sports car, it's probably going to be like around 130, maybe if I had to guess, which is still going to be really fast. I have noticed some of these supercars do like 135 or so I don't think the car is going to be all that slow. I really cannot wait to test out the new Entity MT, I think it's called, or something like that, whatever that vehicle might be called. But that thing does look like a Koenigsegg, so I would say that thing should do well over 130, hopefully. But I also want to guess that this is going to be a sports car, so I'm also saying the 300R is not going to be the fastest thing out there, but also not the slowest, guys. I mean, 125, to be honest, is pretty average for GTA Online, I would guess. I mean, most of the vehicles on here tend to do that, and most of them tend to be around like 125 to 130, even the muscle cars. And I would say most players are going to be happy that muscle cars are insanely fast on straightaways because let's be honest, most of them are probably going to be made for that. But moving over to the speed test with the 300R here by the tunnel. So on my way over here, guys, I was averaging maybe like 120 miles an hour, and if I hit the littlest bump on the road, the car would basically jump to like 127 to like 129 or so if I had to guess, I would say the top speed of this vehicle is probably going to maybe be around like 125 or so, something like that. It could be a little bit higher because of the bumps on the road, but on the straightaway on my way over here, which I did also notice on the other side of the highway can be kind of weird at times, but regardless, without the bumps, this car was doing like 121 or so, something around that, so I definitely don't think this is going to be like the fastest sports car in the game, but then again, most of the sports cars in GTA tend to do like 125 unless we look at like the Pariah. That car was honestly nuts before it was nerfed, my goodness. It did like 160 or something or 150 and it was honestly a blast to drive. But I do think a lot of players are going to pick up the 300R mainly because of the way this car looks, and not only that, it's going to be literally the new Z400 and or 400Z. I guess like tomato there, but regardless, I would say this car is definitely going to be worth a look even though it's going to be over $2 million to fully max this thing out.